Hey guys, it's Lily, and today I'm going to be deep diving into veganism, a little bit of pescatarian just to compare them. But we're going to be talking about what science says about vegan diets, common misconceptions and criticisms, micronutrient challenges, what a well rounded vegan diet should look like, and whether adding fish, doing a pescatarian diet, changes any of the health outcomes. Let's talk about it. Common arguments for veganism include animal ethics, of course, avoiding the animal suffering, killing animals for meat or animal products, environmental sustainability, which plant based diets do tend to have a lower environmental footprint. But how significant is it when it's only a few people doing it? Chronic disease reduction and health potential. According to the 2023 Frontier Review, a well planned vegan diet can reduce chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and certain cancers. We're going to go a little more into that. Better metabolic and body weight outcomes because plant based vegan diets are often lower in calorie density and saturated fat and higher in fiber. It kind of helps with weight management, improved glycemic control, and improved lipids. Lower intake of potentially harmful animal derived nutrients such as reduced saturated fat, cholesterol, and processed meat are often associated with heart disease, some cancers, and other health negatives. So, lowering that intake can have some health benefits. But common arguments against a vegan diet, criticisms for strict vegans include risk of nutrient deficiencies, and that being that vegans have inadequate intake of certain nutrients such as protein, vitamin B12, vitamin D, calcium, long chain omega 3 fatty acids, iron, zinc, iodine, and possibly selenium. There's concerns for bone health issues, with the 2023 review notes that vegan diets may lead to lower bone mineral density compared to omnivores because lower intakes of calcium, vitamin D, vitamin K, and long chain omega 3s could increase the risk of fractures, especially in older adults. There's concern for your muscle mass and your protein quality because plant proteins are often lower in certain essential amino acids and may have lower anabolic quality compared to animal proteins. The need for supplementation or fortified foods is a concern because to avoid the deficiency, you often need to take a surplus of supplements or rely on fortified foods, which then gets into how many additives are in what you're consuming. And then there's the criticism of junk veganism. Vegan diet does not automatically mean healthy. If someone lives in an ultra processed vegan meat substitutes, sugary snacks, refined grains, etc., they may not get the benefits that some vegans do. Long term data are more limited than often assumed. While some diseases, such as heart disease and diabetes, show benefit associations, other outcomes like bone fractures, cognitive function, and long term mortality have less consistent or less robust evidence. So, some potential trade offs depending on what you replace your animal foods with. For example, reducing saturated fat and cholesterol is good, but if you replace that with refined carbs or unhealthy foods, the benefits might not be worth it. And so drawing on, I'm going to be pulling information sorry, I'm going to be pulling information from three specific articles, which I will have linked below. And I keep mentioning the 2023 Frontiers review. It actually shows that a well planned vegan diet with adequate calories and attention to nutrient supply can reduce the risk of chronic disease in type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and some cancers. It highlights many beneficial bioactive plant compounds, meaning the antioxidants, polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids, and glus- glucosinolates, nolates. Yeah. What it highlights many beneficial plant compounds which likely contribute to cardiovascular, metabolic, and perhaps anti-cancer effects. On the other hand, the review also warns that inadequately planned vegan diets often fall short on certain micronutrients like protein quality. We've mentioned that B12, vitamin D, calcium, and omega 3. The long term observational study from the 2019 EPIC-Oxford cohort found that vegetarians and vegans had a 22% lower rate of ischemic heart disease versus meat eaters. However, they also found that the 20% higher rates of total stroke. So, what this study found is that they had a 22% lower of heart disease, but they had 20% higher rates of stroke. So, it was kind of like a trade off, largely driven by hemorrhagic stroke among vegetarians and vegans compared to meat, meat eaters. A more recent meta-analysis from 2022 actually covered many cohort studies, found about a 15% reduced relative risk of cardiovascular disease and about a 21% reduced risk of IHD for vegetarians versus non-vegetarians. But for the Stroke Association, it was not clear, their data wasn't clear on the increased or decreased risk. For vegans specifically, that same meta analysis found a modest 18% risk reduction of IHD, but data was limited, less precise for stroke, though evidence was inconclusive again. Um, Basically, vegan and vegetarian diets, especially well planned, do tend to reduce the risk of certain diseases such as heart disease, maybe some cancers, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes. But the benefits are not universal, and there are some potential risk trade offs, such as the nutrient deficiency, bone health, possibly increased stroke. Also, many findings come from observational studies, which show associations, not causation. So, the diet quality, lifestyle, supplementation, genetic, and geographic differences all matter. They couldn't obviously control all of that in everybody. It was kind of just take a poll of everyone who's vegan. Okay, cool. Where do you end up? They weren't able to control this person from birth to adulthood in their genetics and their lifestyle, obviously. So what does a well-rounded vegan diet look like? What should it look like? It should be diverse in whole plant foods. So it should have lots of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, lentils, chickpeas, nuts, seeds, whole cereals. And it should really have an emphasis on unprocessed or minimally processed foods rather than vegan junk food. It should have good protein sources and adequate protein intake. So you have to make complete proteins when you're having a vegan diet. So be very aware or track of what you're eating. And you can get protein from legumes, beans, tofu, soy products, and then combine different plant proteins to make essential amino acids. Adequate intake of critical micronutrients is also very important because some nutrients are scarce or absent completely in plant only diets. According to the review, vitamin B12, vitamin D, long chain omega 3s, calcium, iron, and zinc, iodine, and possibly selenium are absent from a lot of vegan diets. The vegan diet is also obviously high in fiber and antioxidants and phytochemicals. There's plenty of fiber, which helps your gut health, glycemic control, and satiety, and antioxidants from fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, giving benefits beyond just being vitamins. Balanced calories and lifestyle are also important because you do need to be these fruits and veggies can make you feel fuller longer. You do still need to make sure you're consuming enough calories for your lifestyle. And you need to regularly monitor your micronutrients through labs, especially if you are elderly or pregnant, obviously. So I mentioned pescatarian. What is pescatarian versus vegan? And does it have any health comparisons? Of course it does. Let's get into it. So in a vegan diet, we've talked about some of those health benefits, but when you start talking about a pescatarian diet, they actually also, vegan had a 22% lower of heart disease, right? Pescatarian, meaning they're vegetarian plus fish essentially, um, they had a 13% lower heart risk. And they, because of that fish consumption, they have a better supply of long chain omega 3s, complete proteins, and B12s. So it's easier to meet those nutritional needs. But it is also important to check the quality of your fish. I had talked about in a different video how mercury poisoning isn't really that likely that you're going to happen. But if you're pescatarian and your main protein source is fish, just be aware of the type of fish you're consuming. so that you're not at risk for having too much mercury in your system. All of that to say, in summary, I'm going to try to shorten it down. A vegan diet, if well planned, diverse, and supplemented where needed, is backed by scientific data to reduce many chronic diseases and offering health promoting properties. But veganism is not a magic bullet. There are real nutritional challenges and potential trade offs you need to pay attention to. And it's far from being automatically the best. A poorly constructed vegan diet, heavy in processed vegan substitutes, refined carbs, and little variety, may miss the benefits and risk deficiency completely. Diets that are plant based but include fish may strike a sweet spot, including good cardiovascular benefits and easier nutrient adequacy. So, just something to keep in mind. Ultimately, individual goals, lifestyles, values, and ability to plan and supplement should guide whether you choose veganism, pescatarian, vegetarian, whatever your dietary pattern you want to have. Yeah. I'm going to be making a video on the carnivore diet as well and comparing it to this. Um, That was interesting because I hadn't really looked into the carnivore diet too much. I was like, not my thing. Um, but it's interesting. So we'll talk about that next time. I set up my Spotify. So if you're more of a audio listener, I'm going to put my handle on the screen because I can't think of it right now. If you've noticed, I had to change my YouTube handle because I'm trying to keep everything kind of cohesive. I do have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now Spotify. TikTok is more of daily whatever posts. Instagram's a little more, I don't know. I feel like it should be more aesthetically pleasing. I don't think mine is though. You tell me. My YouTube obviously is a ew. Anyway, my YouTube obviously is full length info breakdowns. And I'm just gonna be posting the same things on Spotify. Just if you're not a visual person, you want to be an audio person, check me out over there. Um, Till next time.